you want to put good things out into the world, don't you, that encourage other people. And it's easy to get caught up on the aloneness of it and look at yourself, and that's a terrible journey to go on. You need to, it's a spiral downwards. So it's good to keep making decisions to pour out something of yourself to bless others, and in doing so you end up getting blessed yourself. So this is great.
This is Jess, and you're listening to the Pumping Podcast. Mamas, I am about to introduce you to one of my biggest role models. I can't even believe I'm saying this right now, but I am about to introduce you to an Olivier Award-winning actress, Laura Michelle Kelly. This mama is best known for playing the title role of Mary Poppins, where she received an Olivier Award for Best Actress in a Musical. And years ago, when I was playing this role, I studied parts of her performance and prayed that I could just be a little essence of what she brought to the role. And so you can only imagine my giddiness when she responded saying that she'd be willing to share her motherhood journey on the podcast. I was blown away. Her little guy came into the world earlier than expected, but I am so grateful to say that this month he will be celebrating his first birthday. And if you listen in, you might get a chance to hear him and his amazing drum skills. So without further ado, I introduce you to Mama Laura Michelle Kelly. I could not be more honored and excited to speak to my guest today. For those actors out there and musical theater loving moms out there, today I have the privilege of chatting with Laura Michelle Kelly. Welcome, Laura.
Hi. I have the pleasure of talking to you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Pumping Podcast. It means the world to me. You have no idea.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
For those who are listening who haven't heard of you before, I don't know who those people are. They've been living under a rock. But Laura Michelle is an English actress who's best known for starring in Mary Poppins as Mary, where she also received an Olivier Award for Best Actress in a Musical in the West End. And she was also Sylvia in Finding Neverland on Broadway. I just have to take a quick minute to gush over you because my personal favorite role and show of all time was Mary Poppins. And we shared this earlier when we talked a couple months back that I've gotten the opportunity to play Mary as well twice. And I so have admired you and the research that I was doing for that role. And I just want to thank you for your performance and sharing your talent. You're such an inspiration.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
I have to ask what it was like playing that role.
I was very young. I was 24 when we were originally starting all the workshops for it and the rehearsals for it. I think it was a pleasure that we had the chance to work on it outside of town, so out of London. It's an unusual thing to do that in England because I guess regional theatre isn't as strong over there as it is here. There are some major players, but over the years the funding's not been there for the theatres to keep running, and so there's not as many opportunities there. So it was quite rare to get a chance to work on something outside of London, and we went to Bristol and developed. We spent a long time developing the show, and the creative team that came to the table already had a lot of decisions already made. Unlike a Broadway show where they come to the table and maybe they have a few anchor points, but it could go anywhere, any which way, because of the cast that they're casting in, and some of the creative choices haven't been decided yet until the cast get involved. But over there, it's a little bit more. You have to be ahead of the time, so they had a lot of things already decided before we even came to the table. So we had such a great time in Bristol playing with things and having so many more scenes, and obviously we had a lot of technical trouble with the house, and we were able to iron out a lot of the problems technical wise out of town, so that was great. So to go through that process was incredible. I think it made me aware of how much I'd been missing out coming in and playing parts that had already been created by somebody else. That I realized how much I loved being that person to decide which way a character looks or decides my journey, then people get to do that journey there after you, and that's such a privilege. So yeah, it was a lot. It was an amazing experience, and I love the people that I was working with. I think at 24, you don't realize what you're getting into. I had no idea
Mm-hmm.
the life-changing thing that it would be. And I was really grateful that I had the opportunity to play it on Broadway like 5 years later, because I was a different person then. And I actually got to really enjoy it so much more because I could relax a bit. There was a pressure in another way that an original Broadway cast had made their stamp on it. And I was like, well, how are they going to receive me? And I was really nervous about that. But to get to play it again and overcome some challenges there, and playing it with a different audience, and I grew so much as an actress and as a person, and got to really enjoy the story so much more doing it on Broadway. And yeah, I play it again in a shot. I don't think Mary Poppins is ever a part that you age out unless you just can't physically dance it anymore. It's very physically demanding. There were so many more scenes and songs in the original. Even in London, they cut a few spots to shorten the show for New York, and I was so grateful because I remember almost crying before anything had happened, because I knew there was another quarter show to go.
Exactly.
And there wasn't a break, and I remember being so physically exhausted, like almost having to hold back tears down the stairs. But there was such a gift in that, because you've overcome each night. You've overcome what you thought your limit was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was glad that they gave me a few breaks in New York.
Exactly. You're like, this is no problem. This is easy now.
But I also think everything was easier too in New York, because I had learned how to be a bit more healthy, like with my time and with my diet and with my exercise and stuff. I'd learned how to be a bit more, show myself a bit more self-care. I was hitting it hard when I was 24. I was making an album. I was going after movies. But when I came to New York, I just did the show, and that was such a good thing to do, because I could just really focus and enjoy it, and I didn't push myself too hard.
And now you're joining us from the West Coast, right?
I am in Seattle. We are surrounded by smoke with these fires. I just really feel for the people that are in places that are worse off than us. But we're coming out of quarantine only to find that we have to stay in our houses again. That the smoke's so thick that the sun is red, and you can look at it. That's that, and it's been going on for quite a few days. They said it would clear up in a couple of days, but it didn't. So I just really feel for people in Oregon. Crazy world we're in right now, but thank God for the rain.
Absolutely. Well, I and many others that I know admire you and all of your work and accomplishments. But what would you say is your greatest accomplishment thus far, prior to children and becoming a mother?
Oh, greatest accomplishment? I wouldn't know. I have no idea. So I guess having to overcome probably was the Mary Poppins, having to overcome the physical tiredness of that and still do a good job. That was a lot to do every day, and that was a lot. And I think at the time in interviews, like they were like, "Oh, how does it feel to follow in Julie Andrews' footsteps?" And I never saw it. Still don't really see it like that, because it was a very different
Yeah, totally
thing.
different.
But I never really realized the magnitude of the part until later, especially now going forward, how that show had affected people. And I always consider it a team effort. So it was never something that I took I never I've got such bad brains. I'm not sleeping at the moment. Our baby keeps us awake all night long. But my greatest accomplishment at the moment is getting him to go down for a nap. No, I never consider it a solo effort. I always consider it a group effort. So it's when you say accomplishment, I'm like, well, what did we accomplish as a group? Because that's why I love theatre so much. I think one of the greatest accomplishments with theatre was Lord of the Rings. It wasn't at the time, I think the audiences didn't come so much because they weren't quite sure what it was. It was way ahead of its time, and I think at the time there was something else going on, that the West End was quite quiet, and so we managed to keep the show open for like 2-3 years, which is actually really great for the West End anyway. But that show itself was so ahead of its time, and that was a real pleasure to be a part of. and it still hasn't been done hit anywhere else, but I really think it should be. It's the most amazing story, and the music was so out of this world.
Well, maybe like, Harry Potter came around and, maybe that sort of different type of a thing. Maybe that'll sort of pave the way a little
I
bit. I
think
don't
people
know.
would be ready right now. I mean, that was always something I always wanted to say yes to, things that broke ground. And they had circus trained, skilled people on stage, and that's been happening for years since then. But at the time, that was not really like orcs in the audience, the immersive experience. So people
Exactly.
want to be involved more now, and they want something different, something else that's to them. That's actually quite spectacular to have 12-foot, you know, trees walking on stage, and they're just ordinary actors, they're not necessarily. We were training for a really long time, and we what a blessing we had with that. We had like an 11-week tech period for that. The
Mm,
stage was like you've never seen, and I don't know. I hope it will come back and happen again. I think they would have to look at it all from the beginning and start over again and see what else we can make with it. I'd love to be part of that again. It's so interesting
we'll put it
how
out into the universe.
well, it's so interesting how I look back and I think, well, I'm not done. I thought I was done, and I'm really not done with some of these parts. And maybe that's just for me to encourage the next generation. But at the same time, um, there are things that you'd want to revisit. You just weren't finished. Sometimes you just need a really long break and then come back to it.
Exactly. Well, and I think as a creative, we never really are done because we're always looking for something creative too. So,
Yeah, you do need to go back out, refill, get some more imagination going, come back to the part, and you've got more to give. That's true too.
yeah.
Accomplishments, though, I think as a show that was a really big accomplishment to pull that off. Um, that I wouldn't know other than that. I think I see my life in different chapters, and each chapter has its own ups and downs and things you remember, and each one of them is hard enough to overcome. Sometimes in some of these chapters, it was an achievement just to walk out the door and go meet someone for coffee, with what you were dealing with. And some chapters, it's I was able to tap dance, do magic, steer children out into safety, and sing at the top of my lungs at the same time. So those things, yeah, it depends. They all have their own different skill set.
So then your chapter of motherhood, when did you become a mom? And considering this career, what made you feel like it was time to take that journey into motherhood?
I always wanted to be a mum. I think if you look at all the parts I've played, they've always been
Mm,
very nurturing. But one thing that has shocked me is that however I thought a mother would be, to be a mother, and the mother I played, um, it's nothing anything like I thought it would be. I thought I was prepared, complete shell shock. Oh, this is motherhood. I didn't realize how selfish I was, and the things you go through. And I'm so sad that for my 20s and 30s I didn't realize what my friends were dealing with when they had children, like the challenges that they face every day, overcame every day. um just even with lack of sleep and the cares you have for your kid, that you just want the best for them. And health wise, if something's going wrong, it's just all you can think about. um yeah, and even the fact of you want to feed your baby and you can't produce milk enough for the baby at the beginning, and you're like you're just torn up about it. It's like things like that, just the physical demands and um the realizations you have when you become a parent. I can't even I've only got one right now. I've got a second on the way.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I'm due. Oh, baby, I'm looking at the monitor and I'm seeing he only just went down for a nap and he's waking up. Hang on, I'll go
Oh,
get him.
sweet thing.
He's staring at me in the monitor with his eyes. Hang on. Hello. Hi, that was the shortest nap ever. Wanna come
Oh.
out? Yeah, bless his heart.
Oh my goodness, well,
Thank
congratulations.
you. We're due in February.
And your son is about to turn 1 next month, right?
Yeah, thank you for remembering that.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, he's a delight. Like, he's funny and witty, and we're not quite at the stage where he's looking at everything in wonder. He's actually got quite a sober face. He is quite a serious baby until daddy comes home, and then daddy comes home and he becomes this like giggling little monkey.
Oh.
With me, we're fairly quiet all day, and we chill and we do fun things together. And people often say he looks very sober looking when he meets them for the first time. He's definitely not an extrovert baby right now.
Oh, well,
Which is
maybe
fine
that'll
by me.
be, yeah, maybe that'll be your second, or maybe he'll take a turn.
Yeah, maybe. No. But he does love drums. He loves playing the
Mm,
drums. You might hear it in the background.
that's okay. Well, would you share your pregnancy journey with us? I know that the birthing experience was maybe a little bit of a challenge, but was your pregnancy experience challenging? Did it take you a long time?
No, I think one thing I talked to you about. It's all right, honey. One thing I talked to you about that uh, I was shocked at how quick it happened because I was 30. I was 38. I'd only just got married, and so we weren't going to be worried about having a baby. I was already ready like years ago, but I hadn't met the right person. And so meeting Sean, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we thought it'd take a while, but it didn't, thank God. And uh, 10 months later, he's here right now, or 11 months later. He came early. That was a challenge, a real challenge. But I tell you one thing that was quite mind blowing was as soon as I got pregnant, I had this sudden fear that I was never going to work again, which is, I think a lot of women must have that thought and then have to overcome that because, of course, you are. But the thing is, you can write yourself off, or other people could write you off. But I was surprised that there was lots of producers that were happy to take me on in the shows they offered me, almost as if I had that thought. It was like I was gifted 3 different shows, one after the other, for my second trimester. When you have the most energy, I did Cabaret, Matilda, the Cabaret in Connecticut, Matilda in the Muni in St. Louis, and Pride and Prejudice. I played Jane Austen, quite heavily pregnant, and they were all very progressive, and they were excited about it. They were excited to share that journey with me and to be the ones supporting me. I was so shocked.
That's
All
amazing.
these three male producers, one female producer actually too, but just so supportive. And I thought I just really want to share that with people because often people think, well, if I have a baby, it's going to be the end of my career. Or a lot of friends have come to me and said, but I haven't made it yet. I haven't done all the things I want to do. And I was like, you're never going to feel that way.
Exactly.
And just because you have a child doesn't mean you shouldn't have a career as well. Yes, there'll be some challenges as I'm finding, like juggling your priorities. Like obviously your kid is going to always come first, but juggling your schedule and finding people to help you in that's going to be a hard challenge sometimes. But I think it's a real shame if people stop going for being creative just because they've had a child. Each to their own. Each capacity in a person is different, but I would challenge people, and I'm challenging myself to keep stepping out and being creative despite my life, my world just being fuller. And I've actually feel like I've got more to give because of this experience in a way
Exactly,
than I
right.
ever had before.
You're filled with this other experience that can influence those roles in such a different way.
I think so. There's like a whole other world that my eyes are opened. But I mean, not to say that you don't. If you have to have a child to do that. I think you just have to have empathy to do that. But a bit like um, having never been in a car crash, you can imagine what it's like. You can see what it's like. You can see the effects of it, but the trauma of it you've had to overcome. And having the overcome of it, I can't compare having a child to a car crash. But you know what I mean?
Well, but it is still trauma to a certain extent, it's
I suppose giving birth can be traumatic if it was for me.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, we weren't going to do epidural, as I think a lot of women often say. I'm going to go natural, and that's a really good idea. Which I would have loved to. However, after like 12 to 15 hours of labor, I was like, okay, give me one. Just really
Exactly.
give me one. I thought I could do it. I can't do it. They gave me one, but it went wrong, and they went too high, and I stopped being able to breathe.
Oh my gosh.
Well, they couldn't tell me if it was that I wasn't able to breathe or that I couldn't feel myself breathing, and so therefore it didn't feel any different. They put me on oxygen, but they took out the epidural and they said, we're gonna have to do it again. And I was like, no, you can't. Not if I've gotten to this point where I can't breathe. You can't give me another one, because you didn't know why it was happening, you know? Half of me could feel the contractions and everything, and half of me couldn't, which was one half. The half of me that couldn't was a good half. but the rest of me, I could feel every single thing. And it was really, that was my experience. And knowing I've got to go through the experience of birth again, I think when you know you've come through it, you know, well, I'm strong. I'm made of stronger stuff than I thought. But it's definitely a trauma involved in a way. And I mean, I love hearing the stories where women say, "Oh, it was wonderful. It all went smoothly, and I did my hypnobirthing, and it was just magical." I'm like, "What were you on?" Because it was not like that for me.
Mamas, I just wanted to take a quick moment to recognize one of my sponsors, Hypnobabies. Hypnobabies is birth hypnosis, how to enjoy your baby's birth in comfort, joy, and love. If you're a soon-to-be mama or know a soon-to-be mama, check out the link in the show notes for Hypnobabies. There's a home study course, there's MP3 tracks, and there's also a few non-birthing tracks as well. How to stop smoking, how to help your toddler sleep, and many, many more. Check out Hypnobabies in the show notes for a 20% off discount, and make sure you use the code PUMPINGPODCAST for a 20% off discount. For more info about Hypnobabies, you can go back and listen to episode 7, where I interviewed the founder and CEO, Carrie Tishoff. She was gracious enough to give my listeners a private code for 20% off. So make sure you use that code PUMPINGPODCAST. Go check out Hypnobabies in the show notes. Now back to the show.
But I was a bit traumatized anyway, because I was expecting another 5 or 6 weeks of pregnancy after I finished Jane Austen. And instead, he came after I binged on milkshake and burgers watching The Joker. And I had a week left of the show. And that night, I bend over to, it was my one day off, and that I go to get checked out at the OB, and she's like, "Yeah, you're all good. Everyone says firmly closed cervix, everything's good." And sure enough, my water just broke as I bend down to pick some more ice cream up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And my water just burst. And I'm standing in the bath thinking, "Oh, this is happening." And I have to prepare my husband, who's fast asleep. And I'm just standing in the bath, like catching everything. And I'm like, what are we going to do? We weren't supposed to give birth in this state. We're supposed to give birth in Louisiana, where my family is. We didn't have a home. We had a company housing, even though my husband does work here. We didn't have a home at the time. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm homeless in Seattle. After this work week was done, we'd already packed our bags. So we were homeless in Seattle, giving birth early to this baby, and we couldn't leave for 5 weeks. But it was just blessing after blessing. People helped us and supported us, and we did stay in the NICU for 2 weeks with this one. And that was traumatic. I had some really lovely messages from other people in musical theatre that had gone through worse experience than I was going through, and they were sending me all these amazing text encouragement for someone who is completely lost in that situation, and finding myself like suddenly not pregnant anymore, but a mother. I wasn't mentally ready. I was like, I kept crying, like, he's not in there anymore. And people were like, yeah, he's out now. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, he's not in there. I couldn't enjoy that moment of him being just in there. But thank God that I was employed by those amazing producers for those amount of weeks, because it means that I'm covered for, and this is why I love equity, that I have equity insurance for this baby because of those weeks that they accepted me to do those parts.
Oh, wow.
And that's a huge
amazing
thing. That's a really big thing in the life of a family, to have coverage, health coverage. And for your little one too, my baby was covered. Like, Cigna's an amazing insurance. So and also so I just have to give a big shout out to Equity, because my insurance was so great, thanks to them. And just love that they're sticking up for us all, especially right now with COVID. They're fighting for us all when no one can work. So thank God for them.
Now, would you have any advice for for moms who are potentially finding themselves in the NICU or having their little ones before they're prepared, what would you say to those people?
Oh my gosh, I would say, um,
Because those days are hard, right? Like sitting there not
yeah, they're
knowing.
quite dark. They're quite dark and scary, and you don't know what's around the corner. Stick together as a family. Like, make sure that you're holding your partner's hand the whole way, and being in it together, being honest with each other about how you're feeling. When you're suddenly parents and you suddenly realize you have differing opinions on things,
Mm,
you have your mother's instincts, but you also have what the nurses say, and they're not always the same. There's just a lot of things thrown at you at one time, and I would just say be in the moment and do what you can in that one moment to focus on your child and on self-care. uh, I didn't, after just giving birth, I wasn't thinking about myself at all, but let people help you. You want to play with this?
mm.
Okay with that?
And then specifically for any actors that are listening, what would you say to them? I mean, I know that I've even felt that pull between career and motherhood, and you touched on it briefly earlier, but what would you say? What's the advice that you would give from where you're at now? And
I used to say to my friends that, when I hadn't found the one and I hadn't had children, obviously, yet, and I saw happy couples, and they were waiting for happy women that were waiting for their break to have made it and then to have their family. And I think I would always say, don't wait for the big break to have your family. You can start living your life to the fullest now, and you'll see what still comes your way. uh, the other thing I would say is being, um, you're at the top of your game, whether you're a leading character or an ensemble member. You might not feel like that, but you're at the top of your game. And so sometimes there's that, I want to attain this lead character part, for my life, uh, wish. But you realize when you get there that it actually isn't going to be all that satisfying in comparison to having a family. I mean, I say that because, people would look at my life and go, "But I want your career." One person's this, "I want your career," and I was like, just, if you've got a husband that loves you, and you do want kids, don't wait to get that role or that name for yourself. Like, enjoy the success you have right now. Have your family. You can have both. You don't need to. I believe you can have both. I don't think you need to. You're not sacrificing one for the other. I think that's the misconception, is that you're sacrificing a lot. But I think you do in some ways for your family, sacrifice some things. Like, I'm in Washington, but I found that you can still be creative here. Oh, he's destroying my Hoover. You're right, buddy. I
he wants to vacuum for you, Mom.
mean, that's the way I feel right now. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I said to my friend, just start living your life now. Go for it with children, and don't feel like you have to choose one or the other.
Yeah. How has motherhood changed you?
How has it changed me? I get less sleep. Okay, so I thought, oh, I'm gonna have it all together. I'm a really good multitasker. But then the baby comes out, and they're a human of their own. They're their own little human, and they have other plans. And I have a little wild tiger who refuses to sleep, and at some point, he also was refusing to eat. He just wasn't interested in milk, and he wasn't ready for solids yet.
Yeah.
So he was just like, "Nope, I'm done," because he had a lot of digestion problems, and it was kind of, anyway. So we've been in and out of hospital with this one. Gaining weight was hard for him, and so it's been an uphill battle every day. For, did he have his milk today? Like, each meal was a big deal. And so that's, I suppose, it's made me better at being organized for his sake. um, Now that we're out of the woods, he's nearly 12, and he's no longer in the 1 percentile, which was just devastating for me to see my child doing everything I could, and I still couldn't get him to be out of the 1 percentile. That was really hard. But finally, we're not out of that. That was really difficult. But they're their own little human, and you've got to roll with the punches. It's not always up to you how it goes, and You've just got to be ready to do everything you can, I think, to help them on the beginning of their journey. He's so funny and smart and cute and does these amazing expressions. Wants to explore everything. Can't wait to get to the edge of every carpet.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And probably couch as well pretty soon, if not already.
He's not walking yet, but so so there's obviously been some real challenges and hardships there with not, the weight problem. But I do love that app, What to Expect When You're Expecting, because I go on there and I glean the wisdom of all these mothers, these thousands of mothers. At the same time, I'm able to encourage women further earlier in their journey. I do love that app. I'm on it every day.
Oh, I'll have to put a link in there so people can check that out if they haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the show notes. So I will let you go with that little cutie, but I just have one final question. What is something that you would like to tell him and maybe your future little one on the way now for when they're 18?
Oh my gosh, I'm not ready to say that yet. I've got 18 years to think about that, so it's okay. No, not ready. I mean, I said to my sister-in-law, and she's got 3 kids, and I said, I don't even know how you do it. I spent one day with them before I was pregnant with their 3 children, and she said, it's okay. You just have to start with a small little one. You don't have to, start with 3. And so I'm still on the small little one challenges. And all right, buddy, you're ready, huh? You're ready. But I'm not ready for the 18-year-old advice.
Exactly. Well, I will let you go take care of him and hold him and give him all the attention that he needs. I'm so grateful that we were able to connect. Just thank you for taking your time and sharing your story. It was important to me, and I know it will be for a lot of other women and actors out there to hear as well.
Thanks. I hope that my sharing the tough times of what being a mother's been like will help other people not feel so alone, because you can really get hit with this feeling of being alone when you're first a mother. Even if you're in a really great relationship, there's just a journey that only you can go through, and it's just part of the process. So if I can help one person feel less alone or less, most mothers don't feel like they're good enough, and obviously that's a lie. So that I really don't want people to torture themselves with that thought either. It's something that every mother, it's the art of empathy every mother has, to think it's not enough. It's high up on their list of values to be a lot to their child. So that's a good sign that you're a good mother or parent.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. This was just so lovely. The Pumping Podcast is a podcast for moms and by moms, and I am your host. I'm not yet a mama. I'm a mama in training. If you're enjoying what you hear, take a minute on Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and make sure you review so other mamas out there can find us and listen along while they're pumping or breastfeeding. Some fun news for you: we have a private mama network for support and community of mamas. If you'd like to join, email info@thepumpingpodcast.com. Also, if you'd like to be a guest and share your journey into motherhood, email interviews@thepumpingpodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram @thepumpingpodcast. And for any other questions or to connect, check out thepumpingpodcast.com. Thank you so much for spending some of your day with me. You light me up and inspire me. And share the podcast with a mama or future mama you know. Until next time, keep on pumping.